Welcome into the college basketball BMOC.
Bad buffet.
Coming to you live from Costa Rica and Jeff Nadeau, somewhere in the Northeast, either Pennsylvania or New Jersey, I believe. But big man on campus, welcome in. How you feeling today?
Doing well, Drew. Nice sound effect there. I believe that was our esteemed Juan Ma. Nice touch, Drew, to the Bet Buffet.
Yeah. Let us know in the chat box if you guys are liking that. That's Juan Ma, the Costa Rican accent and all. But Jeff, follow him on Twitter at Jeff Nadeau, one of the best minds in college basketball. We'll be hitting on all kinds of things in the college basketball betting world. But want to start off with BMOC. What's catching your eye, big picture-wise, college basketball?
Well, I think the typical common theme, Drew, is, kind of what I've been talking about, the inability of really anyone to kind of pull away. I think we're starting to see it, though, with the Villanova Wildcats. They really look like the real gem this year in college basketball. For a long time, I wasn't sure if there was a team like that. I think we've seen, kind of these number ones going down, and I thought there's been a couple frauds in that number one spot, but I think we've seen over the last week or so that the Villanova Wildcats are the best team in the country, and until for a week or two that they don't look very good, it's hard to envision anyone taking them out of that top spot. I think that conference is very good, but Villanova just looks like another level. That destruction of Xavier the other night was impressive.
So you wouldn't put maybe Virginia, Purdue, or any of the Big 12 teams anywhere near Nova?
No. I think this is kind of, if you're asking me who the number one team right now in the country is, it's got to be Villanova. You need to obviously see more. It's still very early. I mean, we're literally only in the middle of January. There's a ton more to play. But, Virginia is very good. If you said to me, hey, who's the best defensive team, it would not even be an argument. The Virginia Cavaliers are one of the most elite defensive teams I've ever seen at this level. And I'm a big defensive guy, so for me, that's pretty high praise. They're absolutely dominating. But, I think all the teams have a flaw. I don't know that Villanova has many flaws. I just don't see it.
Yeah, no, it shows. I mean, number one ranked team in the nation. Hey, Jeff, wanted to ask you, something I sent to you before. In the SEC, what's up with Texas A&M, man? They start out, they blow out West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Penn State, USC. And then they're 0-5 in the SEC to start off SEC play. So is this kind of like a buy low opportunity on the Aggies, or do you think they're just heading lower here in SEC play?
I got to be honest, Drew. I'm not sure how good this team really is. I mean, again, they've had some decent wins. I mean, I got to tell you, the first win of the season at West Virginia, look, I hate to say it, I don't put a ton of stock, and I got to tell you, I don't think the committee will either. I mean, that's a win. It's a nice win on your schedule, but I mean, you look up and down this schedule. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of meat on the bone as far as positivity for this group. I mean, in all their step-up games that they've lost, I mean, you stepped up against Arizona, lost. You beat USC in USC at the time. They were ranked high, but I think we've seen that the Trojans are probably the most disappointing team to me in the country this year. And then you like you said, you've lost 5 games in a row, and the ball didn't bounce the right way for them. But we have to also remember this team has had some problems with turnovers lately. They've had issues with rebounding the basketball lately, and the trouble with the SEC is it's not getting any easier. Plus, we also have to remember you got to throw in that Big 12 challenge. You're going to have to play Kansas and Arkansas, 2 really good Big 12 teams. So, I mean, again, I'm sorry, not 2 Big 12, 1 Big 12 team in Kansas. So you're going to have to, get it going. And I think this team has a little bit of pressure on them at this point. According to them, they think they don't need, if they lose another game, it's kind of for them pressurized. I read some quotes from them. They don't think there's any room for error, which is kind of ridiculous. I mean, all they have to do is get to the conference tournament can be a totally different thing for them, but I just don't think they're that good, honestly. We've seen that they have some concerns. They've had injury issues, and the problem is they're kind of stuck in neutral as teams are kind of getting better around them.
Yeah, we got Kevin White in the chat box saying Aggies got hammered by injuries. That killed their momentum. Yeah, they did have some injuries.
Unfortunately, that's not when you decide at the end of the year who goes and who doesn't. Injuries, everyone gets injuries, unfortunately. Do I think they're a different team You know, again, what's the excuse now? I mean, you've lost 5 in a row and everyone's healthy. So there's that argument's really not a legit one because they're healthy right now and they're struggling. Tonight is kind of a big game for them. You have an Ole Miss team coming in that has played pretty well, really since they were called out by their coach. They're well coached there under Andy Kennedy. This is a tough game for them. They need to focus. They have no excuses anymore because now everyone is healthy.
So are you looking to take, what, 10 points with Ole Miss tonight?
Yes, I'm not running to the window to bet on Texas A&M. If I would bet that game, I would definitely be looking right now at Ole Miss. Until I see something out of Texas A&M that shows me that they're, out of this funk. Like I said, if you read some of the quotes coming out of College Station, there's a lot of pressure on this team right now. They really don't have a ton of room for error. They've lost 5 games in a row to start the conference season.
Well, Jeff, we got Andrew in the chat box, 2 Chains, Kevin White, Russell. What's up, guys? Feel free to chime in on the chat box. Anything you want to hear, we'll be hitting that throughout the show. Also got a couple topics on possibly kind of sell high teams, buy low teams, hit on tonight's card, maybe a play of the day from my side. But Jeff, wanted to ask your opinion. We got sell high teams, so teams that are really good against the spread to this point in the season. Want to name a couple for you here and see your opinion on some of them. If some of them you're actually going to look to fade, maybe this week, next week, in the near future. We got Virginia 10-4 against the spread, Villanova 11-6 against the spread, Montana 12-4, ETSU 11-2, Portland State 12-3, and the Auburn Tigers 11-4, all against the spread. Any of these teams I just mentioned, you're actually going to look to fade in the near future?
I definitely think Eastern Tennessee State is going to be one that I would probably key in on. You look at kind of the guts of their schedule, and while they have been impressive, I thought they'd be more of a bet against team this year. They did lose a lot to graduation, but I think Steve Forbes has really kind of cemented himself as one of the better mid-major coaches in the country, and they've had a nice season. I mean, he beat a really good Northern Kentucky team, beat a good Fort Wayne team. They've hung that out of conference, but now you're in conference, and you look at what they've done. Okay, they've beaten Samford, they beat Mercer, which is a good win. They beat Chattanooga, Greensboro, VMI. Not a ton to write home about. You're going to have a really tough part in your schedule coming up here. You got to go to Furman, who to me is one of the better teams in the conference. You got Mercer in a revenge situation. Western Carolina, who is not the same whipping boy they once were. They've started to really kind of turn it up and play a lot better. Fletcher McGee is among the best players in the country for Wofford. You got some real tough games coming up here. I'll be interested to see their mocks here as they kind of get into that schedule. But as far as Villanova and Virginia, no way. I'm not looking to fade them. I will say this: if you're going to get Virginia and you're going to see them, it's always interesting where their totals are aligned because we saw over the weekend they had NC State and they put that total out way too high. If you can get a total with them higher than 130 ever, to me, it's an automatic bet every time. I mean, I hate to keep ragging and talking about it, but they're just so exquisite on defense. It's amazing. The next couple games, I mean, you get Wake and Georgia Tech. You're not going to get high totals there, but just kind of keep that in mind. It was something I had on Saturday or a Sunday, and it came through. What were the other teams you met? Portland State's a good one. They're a team that I think really kind of hit their ceiling a bit. They climaxed to me about 3 weeks ago when they were beating teams like Oregon. I felt like at that point they were almost able to kind of surprise teams. Maybe they were lined a little too high. Now they're in the notion, Drew, where they're favorites, and you're gonna have to lay points with them. They're very hit or miss. We saw that against Sacramento State, among one of the worst teams in the country. They really struggled. The jury's out on them. Basically, if you can handle a press, you'll beat Portland State. They're not sneaking up on anyone in that conference because they know how to play them. And really, the key to stopping a press is slowing them down, having a senior guard, something like that. There's a lot of really good teams in the Big Sky. I think it's a conference that's really underrated. A team like Montana, a team like Idaho, all those teams are going to be better equipped to handle the press. They just I felt like hit their climax a little too high. So for me, Portland State would be a bet against because they're being put out as a favorite when I'm not sure they should be.
Okay, so just to recap there, because I think you brought up some good points. So pretty much Virginia at totaled at 130 or more, look to bet the under. Portland State sitting at 12-3 ATS, possibly look to fade in conference play, especially if the opposing team can break a press. So have senior guards or just a low turnover percentage in general, and also ETSU. You kind of I think you referenced hit their climax. So maybe look to fade them as well. Is that pretty right as far as conclusion?
I think with Eastern Tennessee State, I mean, I think over the next several, about, basically till, the start of the new month, I think this is a good time to maybe, again, it's going to be all about the lines. I think they'll be a little overvalued. I mean, they're facing some better competition coming up here. They got the Furmans and the Mercers and the Woffords. This is kind of a tough stretch in their schedule. Also, you have that Western Carolina game right in the middle of all this. So there's some precarious situations for this group. As kind of they embark on that tour on the road, tour at home. It's just kind of a hard part in their schedule and kind of some sandwichy spots as well.
All right, and I saw you on Twitter put out your 68 players to look for last night, or retweeted it, and I saw no Auburn players on there. So got to ask you about my Auburn Tigers, BMOC, sitting at 11-4 ATS. You looking to bet on them? Maybe looking to fade because they've been making some money, or just kind of sit back and watch Bruce Pearl and company?
Yeah, Drew, I actually like Auburn. I said on our last show, I thought they were a team that could really kind of maintain this stature. And I do want to make people aware the list was not my favorite or best players. It was really just I came up with 68 names that I think can make a name for themselves in March. I obviously people are going to be left out. I think if I was able to do 100, I think everyone would have got on there. Obviously, there's some people that were left out, but I think you mentioned Mustafa Heron, who I think is a tremendous player. That was a great get for them from the state of Connecticut. Obviously, Bryce Brown's been an absolute great player for them. Jared Harper as well. I'm impressed with what they've done because it's interesting. They're a team that was involved with that FBI investigation, and they have been marvelous. You look at a team like USC; they've been a total mess. So it's interesting, kind of how this has all affected different teams. I mean, Austin Wiley's a guy. Daniel Purifoy's they're guys that if this team had, they would be a legitimate team to make a run in March. And even without those guys, they've been really impressive. And it really goes back to at the end of the day, when you ask Bruce Pro to coach a basketball team and that's it, he's a pretty damn good coach. Is he an odd guy? Yeah. Is he a weird character? Yes. Has he done some questionable things? Yes. But at the end of the day, Bruce Pro's a really good basketball coach, and the players like him.
Good stuff, BMOC. Hey, on the other side of this, maybe a possible buy low opportunity. Name a couple teams that have really been burning holes in the pockets of their backers. We got Vanderbilt at 1-13 ATS. Man, if you're betting the Commodores, that sucks. Santa Clara 3-13 ATS. North Carolina, Wilmington 3-11. Yale 2-7. I know this is kind of a tougher question, and it takes some balls to jump on any of these type teams. Any of these four teams catch your eye as possibly making some money in the future here, BMOC?
Well, I do want to touch on your Vanderbilt team there. Vanderbilt is really an interesting case because they're 1-13 to the number. They haven't covered a game on the road this year. And I think the problem with Vanderbilt is their personnel. I don't think their personnel is good enough. You look at the kind of the careers that like Riley LaChance has had, Matthew Fisher Davis has had. They've arguably gotten worse, unfortunately, and that's an issue that I have with Vanderbilt. Their players that are seniors haven't gotten any better. We even saw last year in the NCAA tournament, Matthew Fisher Davis made a horrible mistake that at his junior level, senior level, just can't be made. And I think that's one of the big problems with Vanderbilt. They have no leaders. They have no players that have gotten better over their 4 years there. They had to deal with losing their coach kind of in the middle of it and getting a whole new system. And you look at the system now, it's a very wonky offense. It's awful on the road. They're only shooting about 34% on the road, Drew. And you look at what makes them poor. Vanderbilt shoots, Drew, as far as attempt-wise, 26 threes a game. Okay, so that's a lot. I mean, that's like top 30 in the country. Okay, you look at the percentage, it's barely 30%. So basically what they're doing is there's a lot of bad shots being taken. There's a lot of threes being taken that are not getting made, and there's just no real particular offense in the half court. That's a big reason they're struggling. And you couple that also with, I mean, in conference they're giving up almost 80 points a game. Um, Projective wise, I think they're a 10, 11 win team. I just don't think they're very good. I think they're the worst team in this conference, and I don't see any way out because their best players on paper have actually gotten worse.
Any of the other teams, Santa Clara, NC Wilmington, or Yale, or any other teams out there that you think have
Yeah,
underperformed?
UNC Wilmington's a team that they're hard to really gauge because they're dealing with a coaching change also, and frankly, it hasn't been good. It was a particularly poor hire, and they just kind of run around like chickens with their head cut off. They basically just they don't defend. They run a press, and it gets beaten constantly. Their personnel's not good, other than Demonte Kaycock, and they're in a conference that's tough because that CAA conference is really fast, really quick. You got to be able to defend a little bit, and they haven't been able to do it. They run with teams, which is the absolute wrong thing to do. Um, you know, I think if there's a team I'd maybe consider, I mean Santa Clara, no. Yale, no. Um, I'll tell you what. You have any others? I mean, none of those I'm really too inclined to back. Let me take a look here at the trends right now, actually,
Well,
and see what
we
I'm
got
looking at
Drake
here.
in the chat box asking, do we think UCF gets any better with BJ Taylor coming back? So do you think they can improve here in the next
Do I
few
think they
weeks?
get better?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's one of the most important players at the mid-major level to his team. I think they're absolutely much better. I got to tell you, I think they're a team that could really be a tough out in that conference come tournament time because they really defend well. BJ Taylor is a senior. Okay. He is everything that you look for in a point guard. He can score, he can distribute. He just runs their offense particularly well. And you have to go back because last year they had a similar problem with him. He was injured as well. And he came back and they were exquisite. They were really good. He's about as important player as a team needs. And you look at now, I mean, defensively they've been really good, but they've lacked a little bit on the offensive end. So yeah, I think BJ Taylor is a huge return, and it looks like he's going to play tonight. So that's a huge get for them at home against the Bearcats.
And also Kevin White in the chat box saying Yale could get Mason back and then they'd be interesting. Any opinion on that? I know Yale had some early season injuries, but
Yeah, yeah. As far as Yale's concerned, I'm not a huge Ivy League guy, but again, look, if they get Makai Mason back, that's huge. I mean, he's their best player. Harvard's had some injury problems as well with some of their players, and I think Princeton's probably the best team in that conference. Penn is actually playing really well. Penn was a team that I actually outlined in one of the previews I did for the Ivy League. I think they have a particular edge just because they're really well coached now under Steve Donahue. They have some players that could take games over, and they host the tournament at the Plestra, so that's kind of a big thing this year with them. I mean, they only really started that Ivy League tournament recently, and they get to host it, so it's kind of a plus for them. So, yeah, I think Yale. I'm sure if Makai Mason back, they'll definitely improve. And that might help their ATS stuff. But do I think they can win the Ivy? No, I would look more towards two or three other teams.
BMOC, want to ask you a question off of tomorrow's card, actually. BOL just came out with lines right now on the SBR odds screen. We talked about St. Louis on the roundtable last week, and I believe you were looking to fade him. I think you actually won your bet on Rhode Island on your best bet there. Tomorrow they're playing 757, 758, laying 3.5. Are you still looking to fade St. Louis at all going forward?
Well, here's the thing with St. Louis. At home, I'm not looking to fade them. No, on the road, I would look to fade them. In this spot though, tomorrow, I would actually look to back them here. Duquesne's coming off a really emotional, really long 3 overtime game over the weekend against the LaSalle Explorers. Now you got to head on the road and travel to kind of an atmosphere that's I think up and coming. I think Travis Ford's going to get that team back to Rick Majerus, Larry Hughes day at some point. But you're getting a team here off a 3-overtime game. St. Louis has some talent, I will say. I think at home they're a much better look. They are a team that plays really good defense. And I noticed that over the weekend against Duquesne, to me, one of the better players in the country, and I know no one will give him credit, but there's a kid that plays on LaSalle named Pookie Powell. He's one of the better scorers I've seen. He really he totally shit on Duquesne. I mean, they just couldn't guard him. I mean, it was really kind of a shame. And, I look at St. Louis and I say to myself, could they have the same success? Why not? I mean, Duquesne struggles at times to get offense going. It's probably going to be a low-scoring, boring basketball game. But at home, I kind of like St. Louis a little bit.
Okay. I was thinking about making that my play of the day on the video, but I'm going to hold off. I'll take your advice because I know you know those teams better than I do. Hey, want to also throw in some chat box stuff here. A lot of guys talking about Purdue. Purdue destroys Wisconsin by 30. That's what Sean's saying. I was looking at this game, BMOC. My quick thoughts were Wisconsin kind of slows it down, and so laying a lot of points against them kind of makes me a little bit nervous. Do you have any opinion on this Big Ten matchup?
Well, I really like Purdue. I mean, I think they're the best team in the Big Ten. But I think you're right with saying that, Wisconsin will slow it down. Listen, I've obviously been very low on Wisconsin. I think a lot of people have. Unfortunately, another team that got the injury bug, unfortunately. Ethan Happ is a top 10 player in the country. The problem is, the rest of the supporting cast is young. I mean, you have some decent, guys on this team, Khalil Iverson and Brad Davidson and Brevin Pritzel, but you just have a young team that really kind of get hit by this injury bug, and it hasn't really fixed anything. I think Greg Gard is I don't know if he's the answer long term there. I like Hap a lot. Do I think they're going to win by 30? No, I think that's a little ridiculous, but I think they have we can cut it if you guys want. I mean, we were almost done anyway.
We live, Wanma? We're going live, big man. We're back up and running. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, I guess internet problems down here in Costa Rica. Who knows? It might be up there in the Northeast, big man. But hey, wanted to see. Did you see that the court storming incident where that West Virginia kid threw a punch? Did you see that? What did you think about that?
I did. Unfortunately will probably be in the minority here, but I think court storming should be banned. I think it's extremely exploited. I mean, people rush to court as the 8th team in the country. That shouldn't have happened to begin with. I mean, that's ridiculous. I like that they're putting steps in. We unfortunately have to remember at this point, I mean, injuries happen. People fall. People get knocked over. I would ban it. And as we see with this kid, it gets a little bit violent as well.
Yeah, man, it's kind of crazy. Just a bunch of college kids running on the court against a team that, at least supposedly, according to rankings, was supposed to win the game, obviously in a bad mood. So
we try to do the best. I mean, sometimes we do have some unforeseen connection issues. I actually had some earlier on the show as well. So it looks like it's cutting in and out, but we'll try to press on.
Yeah, Wanma, we good?
Yeah, no, seems like the connection sucks here, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we luckily are towards the end of the show, so I mean.
Yeah, we gave out a lot of good stuff, I think. I guess any last questions if there's still people listening, big man, before we shut it down?
As always, follow me on Twitter. I do shows every day, picks and stuff. So it's not always cut off. We'll get back on the air, and we'll be back on tomorrow for the roundtable. So catch us then. Yeah, roundtable. What? 10 Eastern, 9 Central, 8 or 7 Pacific. So yeah, for BMOC, I'm Drew Martin. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next Tuesday, 3 o'clock Eastern time. Thank you.